Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on KXAN Live. I'm your anchor, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our Kristen's Classroom segment with meteorologist Kristen Currie. Kristen, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Of course. Good morning, Esme. It's good to be here.
It's so cold outside.
It is so cold, girl. We were out live at the Trail of Lights this morning, and I felt every bit of that 36 degrees we had here in Austin this morning.
And it's going to continue for the rest of the day?
We'll get a little warmer this afternoon in the 60s. Well, I say a little warmer. That's a lot warmer than the 30s that we had. But tonight into tomorrow night, another night in the 30s. Not quite as cold, but still cold. We want to make sure you guys know that we want to keep those pets and those sensitive plants inside for one more night.
Yeah, and although it's going to be 30, we won't be seeing those snowflakes we're talking about today, but we are going to learn about them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in. Kristen's Classroom. This is our opportunity to talk, about anything weather, science, environment related. And I chose Kristen's Classroom's topic because this is actually a question I get from the kiddos, from the students that go and visit with in the classrooms, and they ask me a lot about how does a snowflake form, right? How does a snowflake form, and why does a snowflake look like a snowflake? So let's jump into it here with our graphics, because when it comes to a snowflake, everyone is going to be different. No two snowflakes are the same. They're very unique when it comes to those water droplets. Are we able to get those graphics?
I think are they working when you switch them?
Yeah, it should be on max 1 if you got it. I got some points to share. There it goes.
There we go.
There's my snowflakes, because this can kind of get a little convoluted, but I'm going to simplify it as best as possible. If we are in a cloud, those temperatures in my cloud are sub-freezing, but we have those water droplets, and it's very, very cold. Those water droplets that are looking for something to freeze on can sometimes cling to a particle of dust or maybe a particle of pollen, my super cooled water droplets, or liquid water that's technically liquid, although it is an environment that's sub-32. Those water droplets cling to a pollen or a dust particle. That water vapor freezes onto that ice crystal. So now you've got the beginnings of a snowflake there, of that ice crystal. And it gets kind of that beautiful symmetric shape and that order because of the water molecule and that H2O. It gets that hexagon, or the 6 sides. Every snowflake, when it's in that perfect environment, is going to have those 6 sides. Now, when we look at each individual flake, so if I've got my ice crystal, I've got my 6 sides forming. Every single snowflake in my cloud that starts to fall to the ground is going to take a slightly different path from the cloud to the ground, right? So as it encounters these layers in the atmosphere from the cloud to the ground, some of those layers are slightly different temperatures, slightly different humidity levels at various levels from the cloud to the ground. That's what gives that snowflake its uniqueness, because it's a slightly different path from the cloud to the ground, being pulled down by gravity. My snowflake is going to look slightly different from the snowflake next to it and the snowflake next to that. So that's, in very simple terms, why a snowflake is very unique. It all kind of starts the same with that particle of dust and the water vapor, the super cooled water droplets there that cling to that dust or cling to that pollen particle, and it gets those 6 sides, and as it falls and grows along that slightly different path from the snowflake next to it, it becomes its own unique snowflake.
Wow, just like our fingerprints, like you said.
Just like our fingerprints, yeah. Every human is different. Every snowflake is different. Now, if you go outside when it's snowing, it's going to be very, very tough to distinguish one snowflake in its pattern versus the other. You really have to look under a microscope to be able to see its different patterns like that. But it all has, the same process of starting up in the atmosphere, up in those sub-freezing clouds, and then falling. What typically gets us here in Texas is our ground temperatures. They struggle to not only reach freezing, but stay below freezing. So they kind of become little mushy snowflakes by the time we see them down here. But snowflake nonetheless, all taking a different path from the cloud to the ground.
And I remember when we were chatting about this a couple weeks ago, you were talking about when you cut the paper to make the project, it's the same thing.
Exactly. So if you think about it, and if you're looking for a way to teach this with the kiddos at home, I'm sure a lot of us, when we were in elementary school, did the homemade snowflakes where you take a white piece of paper, you fold it several different times, and then you cut along the edge to make a snowflake. Well, every person's going to cut slightly different, right? Especially if there's no lines or anything. My cut might be a little deeper than your cut along the edge of a snowflake, or I might do a triangle cut instead of a semicircle cut. So just like when we are making our snowflakes, they're going to be a little different. My real snowflakes falling from the cloud are going to be a little bit different just because of the different levels of moisture and humidity and temperatures, and sometimes even wind that it's going to be falling through on its way down to us.
And this is interesting to learn because I didn't know how different they are. I'm sure a lot of people watching don't know, but unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see them here anytime soon, right?
No, and it depends who you are. Some people say fortunately, some say unfortunately, I think here in Texas, we're a little triggered by snow, but we do not have any snow in the forecast. Our temperatures are way too warm still. I know we got close this morning, but there's a very dry air mass in place right now. So you got to have that moisture up higher in the atmosphere to get those snowflakes even started, to eventually drop down to the ground, and we just don't have enough of that yet. The cold air, yes. The moisture from our snowflake, no.
Well, Kristen, you did create a blog post for this topic, and that's on our website, kxn.com. We'll make sure to put that on the homepage right after this video so that anyone can find it easily. But what else is on here that we didn't get to touch on?
I think I got everything, honestly, girl. The gravity pulling it down, the water vapor. I might have said liquid water, and I meant water vapor before, but it is within that sub-freezing environment of a cloud. And when I teach this in the classrooms, I oftentimes say, everything kind of starts as a snowflake because it is so cold up in the clouds and up in the higher levels of the atmosphere, and it really is dependent on what our temperatures are like underneath that cloud. That determines whether we see rain if it's really warm, maybe freezing rain if it's warm, then really cold, sleet where it's kind of warm, kind of cold above our head, and then obviously snow would be below freezing from the cloud to the ground. So that's another way that you can teach it with your kids. Is think of everything falling out of the cloud as a snowflake, and the temperature between the top of my head and the cloud is what determines if it's a raindrop when it hits my face or if it's a snowflake.
Well, thanks for joining us and sharing all this information with us, Kristen. We can't wait to learn about what you're going to teach us next week.
Of course, and let me know if you have any topics. Happy to share what I know.
Yes. Well, thank you guys for joining us here on KXAN Live. We have a lot more streams going to happen throughout the rest of the day, and we hope you all join us. Thank you.